DSP Samuel Kojo Azugu, Commander SWAT Unit National Security Secretariat, was given his testimony to the Ayawaso West Wuogon Commission of Inquiry into the violence that occurred during the by-election there. And he said quite a lot of things, and it's been quite a unique hearing, if you may, because since this started on Thursday, we somewhat have not seen any person giving their testimony beyond 2 hours, but this is almost going into about 4 hours, and he's been answering questions with regards to how his men appeared on the day, why they were wearing masks, and also the vehicle having the police signature and all that. Well, we understand that the commission is done for today, and it's also the first time you're seeing one person appear. So you can imagine how detailed the commission is. Well, we are being told that they would rather resume at 3 a.m. Forgive me for that information coming in, trickling in actually. But do expect more analysis on this channel as we bring you highlights of DSP Samuel Kojo Azugu's testimony and reaction so far. Get onto social media. On Twitter, he's at top trends, #1, #2, and also somewhere at #4 at the last time I checked. And a lot of people are really focusing on his testimony. He explains why they had to abort the initial agenda for which they went to the area. They had received some intel that there was a stockpile of weapons in one facility there. And he says that they had to abort the operation because of a probable loss of human life and also because of the by-election. He's been responding to questions from the commissioners, and also, at a point, he wouldn't want to divulge much information. He did mention that he knew the perpetrator of the assault on MP for Ningo Pram. That was in the early period of his testimony, but he would not mention the person's name. He would want that person's testimony, portions of it, to be heard in camera, and the commission did agree that they may have to hear portions of that testimony in camera. Now, another interesting highlight of his testimony in the early hours was what triggered that assault. And he said that, according to the gentleman who hit MP Sam George, some unpalatable words were said to him, and he wouldn't want to repeat that to the entire nation. The commission went ahead to say, well, the commission is not scared of profanity and they wouldn't mind, but he still insisted, and so he did it in writing. We'll bring you more, but my colleague Joseph Akable is going to be telling us what we missed in the last few minutes as we went to Kumasi to bring you that breaking news story. He's been at the commission's sitting today. Hello, Joseph. Hello, Joseph.
Hello, Bennett.
Kindly let us know what we missed.
So a number of issues came up. I mean, in the course of our break, we had the interaction between Professor Henry Tabonsu, who is a member of the commission, and DSP Azugu, who led the SWAT team. The specific questions that were put to him related to the attack of the men on the set day, the 60 officers of the SWAT team attached to the national security that were deployed. Questions were asked about why they put on the mask and the uniform of the civilian operatives who are part of this particular team. And the concern by the commission was to the effect that it didn't appear that the SWAT team had any approved uniform for the civilian operatives that are attached to them. Beyond that, the questions have been raised about the intelligence that they picked up. You recall that the information that has been stated time and again before the commission was that they had some weapons were being stockpiled in a residence, for which reason they moved over. The former IGP, who is also a member of the commission, has been asking questions about the adequacy of the information they were given. And under oath, while asking questions of DSP Azugu did admit that his men did not have sufficient information. The concern by the former IGP was that if they had adequate information, they should have been able to determine that indeed the house belonged to a parliamentary candidate, someone who was contesting the said election, and that they needed more men in order to be able to know how they'll be able to breach into the place. Because he says they picked up intelligence, it wasn't pointing them to who owned the facility. Neither did they point them to the risk involved in terms of the possible numbers that they may be confronted. Because, mind you, DSP Azugu had told the commission that they abandoned the operation because of the numbers and they had to, at a point, call for reinforcement. So then their former IGP asked questions again as to if they had adequate information, they could again have fallen on the police even before moving in. Since the police were already carrying out some operation within that area, they could have programmed and decided a backup team already on standby that could have moved in to ensure that they indeed ascertained the breach, because the concern from the commission was to the effect that they found it very strange that at the point where they reached the building, a building that is suspected to be stockpiled with weapons, and they heard gunshots from the buildings, yet they abandoned the operation and didn't go in, because the gunshots, the commission says, as they heard, they should have taken that to be a confirmation of their suspicion. So at all costs, their men should have breached it and gone in to ascertain for themselves whether what they heard was indeed gunshots. The other concern from the commission, again, has to do with the weapons that this SWAT team, like I referred to. And the former IGP had some concerns about they've been described even as a SWAT team, because it says SWAT means special weapons and tactics. And he asked the DSP whether they indeed possessed any special weapons, and even the weapons that they possessed on the said day when they carried out the operation. And he told the commission that they wielded AK-47. And he asked him that, are those special weapons? The DSP Azugu responded that those are not special weapons. So he even said that he even finds it difficult and as to why they are referred to as a SWAT team in the first place, because clearly they do not possess any special weapons at that material moment. The other point has to do with the work that SWAT team has been mandated to do over a certain period. And that old DSP Azugu admitted that they've been used sometime in the past for operations relating to the protection of public lands. And it was at that point that the IGP remarked again that this is a SWAT team that is supposed to undertake special operation with weapons and tactics, yet they've been undertaking activities that deals with protecting public lands, which is far from their function. So he advised that going forward, he expects that the SWAT team, they ask for specific details from whoever assigns them, and that in his own words, they shouldn't be used as zombies who are just taking instructions simply because they are attached to national security. And once those instructions are handed, they have to go ahead and act.
And Joseph, we understand that the commission will resume at 3. Do we know who is appearing?
I've spotted the National Secretary for the Progressive People's Party, Murtala Mohammed. Our understanding is that they are supposed to, that is his party, supposed to represent his party to testify before the commission. We understand that other political parties have also been billed to appear before the commission, but we understand it's largely relating to the fact that there are political parties who participated in that particular by-election, which turned violent, for which reason this commission has been set up to probe that matter. So they are expected to come and assist the commission as to what they gathered from it. Mind you, they also had their polling agents stationed at the various polling stations across the constituency when the by-election was ongoing. So those are the issues that is why we understand as necessitated they've been called upon to testify before this particular commission.
Joseph, finally, before you go, we sitting in the studio observing what's happening at the Osu Castle have been able to identify some uniqueness or peculiarity to this particular hearing with regards to what we've heard so far. What more can you share with us about how different or unique this particular hearing has been compared to the earlier ones?
I think the first point we need to notice is the duration itself. This has been the longest so far. We have been sitting from 10 a.m. when we started. We just took a 10-minute break, and so it has been a sitting that has dragged for well over 3 hours. And I mean, so the first difference would be the duration, obviously. The second has also been the number of questions that have come from the commissioners and the council involved. And I would say that this particular session has also had more questions come from the council to the commission. Eric Mensah, he asked so many questions when he led DSP Azugu to give evidence before the number of questions that came from the commissioners. Because what we've seen in the previous hearings is when Professor Mensah asks, he is often the one that asks the most questions. Once he's done, you just have just the short ask, some few questions. Then, in just some few instances, we've had the former IGP also ask some few questions as well. But in this particular instance, Justice Short rather took his turn first. He asked a number of questions. In fact, I counted more than 9 questions. Then when he finished, Professor Mensah then went on her usual engagement of asking a number of questions again. Then when Patrick Achampon took his turn, he also asked so many questions. So in all, the second difference that we've also noticed in terms of the proceedings has also been the number of questions that have been asked of him. With the final one being obviously the exhibits that have been brought in. In the past, we've had audio visuals in terms of audio just being played. At this time around, we had some printed pictures that DSP Azugu was confronted in, particularly relating to the identification of his men, whether they wielded weapons or not. So 3 things: duration, number of questions, and the third one being the nature of the evidence that has been presented so far.
All right, and Joseph, I don't recall there being a break for any particular witness. If there was a break, it means that we were going to have another person. But this time around, we had a 10-minute break. Do we know why?
It's not clear, but I mean, the best assumption we could give is that for the first 10 minutes break, it may have been a health break, just whenever the commissioner stretched the Alex a bit. But that's an assumption. We cannot independently verify why the commissioner had to take that break at that point. But mind you, again, before that break was taken, there had been a number of interjections. If you recall, they were trying to get a name of an officer who had assaulted the Nigo Pram MP. They were also trying to get the bit about the name, what had been uttered, the specific thing that had infuriated this officer who had led on with the assault. So even before that 10-minute break, there were lots of issues that remained outstanding. And the other bit had to do with a certain documents that the commission required of DSP Azugu. So all those things were happening just then, and the commission took a break. And I must admit that after the break, things didn't pause as in now in the manner that they used to do before the break. But even when they went for the break, DSP Azugu didn't move an inch. They told him to sit in his chair. He was seated in the chair all throughout till they resumed from the break.
Thank you very much, Joseph. We'll leave you for a while. Hopefully, if it resumes exactly at 3, we'll come back. But we'll definitely come back whatever time the commission resumes sitting. You're live on the Joy News channel, also on Joy 99.7 FM. I'm still here with my colleague Kojo Yangson. Kojo, interesting development. Definitely, Joseph has played out what makes this unique compared to the others. But let's highlight some of the issues, and one of them has to do with the way some of the members of the SWAT team were dressed. And Kojo, I remember when this incident occurred and the video started flying on social media, it was one of the topics for discussion. Many people said, we are not used to seeing this in our country. I don't feel like I'm in Ghana anymore. I feel like I'm in a war-torn country. And there were so many reactions to that. But we hear from DSP Azugu, and these were his words when he was asked, why were they masked on this occasion? Remember, when he was asked to give an answer about how they had dressed, he was trying to tell us about instances where they would wear masks or helmets or dressed away, then brought in the mosquito analogy. Then he was asked a specific question, why were they masked on this occasion? And then he said, I'm yet to ask them. Kojo, it's been almost 3 weeks since this occurred, and we are yet to find out why the men were asked. He claims that if he had seen them, he'd have asked them to take off the masks. You
can understand why many would be of the view that for a commander of a unit that is of this level of sensitivity, he's demonstrating a spectacular lack of understanding or knowledge of his own men and what they do. Not only is he unclear as to why they wore masks on that day, but he hasn't bothered to check for 3 weeks almost since the incident happened, even though this has been one of the biggest talking points since the violence erupted that day. But not only is he unsure of that, but he's also unclear on the general rules around the uniform that they wear. He can confirm that the T-shirts were issued to them, that much he knows, but he doesn't know much else about what they wear underneath. And he said that the khaki that we saw them in was something they were issued with during training. But he, as a commander, has not instructed them to wear that as their uniform. They have chosen to wear it, and he, as a commander, appears to simply be going along with it. It makes you wonder exactly how much control and command this individual has over the team. But these are things that I'm sure the committee perhaps will be able to deliberate on later when they go through the masses of evidence they must have collected from this particular individual. Now, the part that we missed because of the breaking news was primarily the interrogation of the former IGP, Mr. Champong. And he, according to Joseph Akable, focused particularly on their mandate as a team, as Special Weapons and Tactics Team. And that is what SWAT stands for. He was able to establish through his questioning that neither do this group have special weapons or much tactics, to be fair, because they appear to have reacted to the situation in a counterintuitive manner. You were sent there to inspire confidence, but you went in masks. How that will inspire confidence is not very clear. You were then told to expect a possible cordon and search exercise because of intelligence about stockpiling of arms at a particular location. From that same location, you heard gunshots, which to most others would have been confirmation of the presence of arms. Several gunshots, between 20 and 30, according to the testimony of the DSP. However, in spite of this, they aborted the mission to search the location rather than going ahead based on the confirmation of these gunshots.
Well, he gives reasons for that. He says that, well, he didn't want any lives to be lost. And
but he called for
also
reinforcements.
Thought about the back to control
the reinforcements
the situation.
arrived, but they still never went in to verify the presence or otherwise of these stockpiled arms.
We're also told that the regional command took over the premises where they had received some intel that some
almost 3 weeks since,
exactly,
they still don't know whether those who took over found any weapons or not. So it tells you that in terms of tactics, they're not very clever either. So there's a lack of special weapons, there's a lack of tactics. What they can confirm is that in the past they've been asked to work as land guards. It's a bit of a surprise. And it makes you wonder the purpose of this unit, why they have been equipped and and kitted out, and why they are being sent out in some cases to guard state land. I don't know what, in what sense that has to do with national security or even intelligence.
Kojo, I think what's interesting also about this commission's hearing is that beyond looking into the violence itself, we are seeing more of how our security, but specific regards to the police, how some of their operations, take place and how it's done, and the command chain and all that, and who responds to who. Tell me, we've been listening to different stakeholders, if you may. We've heard the Interior Minister, we've heard the National Security Minister, we've heard who he wants to refer to as his deputy, if we like, Brian Champong, and we've heard from the Director of Operations of the Ghana Police Service. What comes to mind when you hear all this and how it's playing out with regards to confidence in the security system?
Well, I'll be honest, only two possible options come to mind. Either we have a very sophisticated security apparatus that is interconnected, interwoven, and are working together to lead us astray in terms of information, or we have a deeply incompetent, disorganized, incoherent, uncohesive group of security organizations who are putting us more in danger than they are securing us. It's one of these two. They're either lying or they are incompetent. They need to clarify which one so that we can continue to pursue our questioning along the right path. Because at the moment, there are so many contradictions. We've already heard from the Director General of Police Operations, who said on the day when he turned up and the media came to him, these were his words, and I quote, he said, "Our boys don't wear masks, so where did these men come from?" He said, "Our men don't wear masks, so where did these men come from?" But today, we've heard the DSP, in his testimony, say that after radioing headquarters for reinforcements, he also spoke to this very same Director General of Police Operations and asked him for reinforcements and informed him of arrests.
Is it possible that, yes, the police service sends men on attachments, and later Professor Henrietta Mensah-Ponsu clarified that these men are actually not on attachment, they are on transfer?
That's correct.
Okay, so is it possible that they sent these men on transfer, yet they're unable to tell how they'll be costumed, what kind of apparel they will appear in? But don't forget that DSP Azugu did mention that he had the police officers in the what he referred to as normal police uniform and the camouflage.
Yes.
So the gentlemen in the khaki-like trousers and the black Lacoste or whatever you want, t-shirts or shirts are actually civilian operatives.
But Bernice, this is what I'm trying to point out. The Director General of Police Operations says he doesn't know these people. But today's testimony from DSP Azugu indicates that this same Director General of Police gets weekly briefings about this same group that he says he doesn't know. At the very least,
maybe he wasn't expecting them to look or dress like that. He doesn't know that they dress or look like that.
And yet on that day, he received a phone call from DSP Azugu telling him of what had happened, that they are at this location, they have arrested people, and they are calling for reinforcements.
All right, so there's just so many of these, what we may want to refer to as contradictions.
In fact, I was going to explain further in terms of this very same contradiction with them, the police and the security forces. Because as you recall, DSP Azugu says that this operation was for morale boosting, for boosting of confidence during the election. And that they were told that as part of that, they may be called upon to do a cordon off and search of a certain location based on the confirmation of intelligence that there have been weapons stockpiled there. So the original project, the original mission was to go and boost confidence during the election. But we heard Brian Achampong on Newsfile and in his testimony to the same commission saying that they were deployed there on intelligence to go and secure a location where they suspected there was a stockpiling of arms, and that their operation had nothing to do with the election.
Well, as we were told by Joseph, who listened to the latter part of that hearing where the former IGP asked some questions about the death, if you may want to put it, the death of intelligence that they received and how they didn't know who that residence belonged to or who that house belonged to. But in all of this, there are expectations, high expectations of this commission's work. I'll quickly be running you through the terms of reference for this commission, because like we said, it's not only zeroing in on the violence that happened at Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency by-election, but also generally, you know, to bring some good and proper reforms. So let's bring you the information now with regards to the terms of reference of the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election Committee of Inquiry. The acting President of the Republic, at that time he was Vice President Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has, with the consent of the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, set up a commission of inquiry into the events of violence which occurred during the by-election held in Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency on 31st January 2019. We'll be bringing you more details shortly. Mission is to just remind you of the terms of reference of this commission. Well, the commission is composed of Mr. Justice Emil Short, he's a chairperson, Mrs. Professor Henrietta Mensah-Ponsu, she's a member, and Mr. Patrick K. Echampo, he's a member and a former IGP as well. We know that the secretary to that commission is Mr. Ernest Kofi Abochi, former dean of the Faculty of Law, Gempa, and a private legal practitioner. Now, to the terms of reference proper. A, to make full, faithful, and impartial inquiry into the circumstances of and establish the facts leading to the events and associated with the violence during the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election on the 31st of January 2019. And also to identify any person responsible for or who has been involved in the event, associated violence and injuries. To inquire into any matter which the Commission considers incidental or reasonably related to the causes of the events and the associated violence and injuries. Just bringing you details of the terms of reference of the Justice Emoshot Commission, and indeed to submit within 1 month its report to the President, given reasons for its findings and recommendations, including appropriate sanctions, if any. So those are the terms of reference, and once this commission was set up, there was a lot of reactions, a lot indeed, Kojo. We've heard from the main opposition, the NDC. They were not excited about the commission. There were concerns raised about the work of the commission and how it could possibly lead to us avoiding other legal processes, which may, include prosecutions and further punishment.
Yes, and I suppose the ultimate benefit or otherwise of the work of the Commission is still yet to be seen. But we are already seeing one very strong benefit, which is the revelation of information. So much of it so far. It has given us a peek into how the apparatus of our security works, or perhaps to some people doesn't work. And that has been very useful. We've also understood the frame of mind of many of the main actors on the day. We've understood the motivation, the things that cause people to make certain decisions, particularly today with DSP Azugu, who has revealed what his operational mission was and what caused him to make various decisions at different times. This is useful information. But of course, the final outcome, the recommendations of this commission, how those recommendations will be communicated, whether they will be kept secret or whether they will be publicly communicated, all of these are going to help us evaluate the proper value of this work.
Talking of recommendations, we've seen the commissioners once a while try to, suggest what various persons in various capacities can do to avoid some of the things that happened. We've seen that especially from Professor Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu, who once in a while tried to suggest, okay, then maybe, don't you think if you had done it this way it would have been better? So already we are seeing some of these things coming up. But I get your point. The general overview is also important. Shortly, we'll be bringing you social media reactions, and my, oh my, so many comments. DSP Azugu is trending on Twitter. And it's interesting, some of the comments there, Kojo. But there's also been concerns about the time frame of the Commission's work, 1 month. Some have suggested, look, this may need more time than we anticipate.
In fact, one of those who has made that call for more time is Professor Jima Buedi, who used to be the executive director of CDD. And his reason for suggesting that more time be given is that he is expecting the commission to go into all issues related in any way at all to the violence, all possible causes of this violence, whether it be the presence of vigilante groups, whether it be the failings of the security apparatus. And he wants them to have enough time to question all the necessary experts who can lead us to the proper conclusions. And that's why he calls for more time. But you can well imagine that the commission would rather like to ask for more time based on some factual need for it. So they would probably prefer to start work, and then if it becomes clear from the scope of their work that they will need more time, that is when you would expect that they would probably call for it or request some extra time from those who commissioned them to do their work. So we don't know, but perhaps they might end up whisking through this in record time and be ready with their findings sooner than anybody else expects.
Interesting. It gets interesting by the day, and we'll be bringing you social media reactions shortly. But you can see in your shots those men who are in the khaki and the black, and well, it's interesting to note that some of them are holding weapons. Not to sound prejudicial, would wait for explanation on who these people are exactly, but we are told by all who have appeared before the commission so far that civilian operatives do not carry weapons. We heard today from DSP Azugu, who is supposed to be the unit commander. He actually is the SWAT Unit National Security Secretariat. He's commander of that secretariat. Tell us that the 25 policemen were not in black shirts and khaki. We've heard that from him.
Another contradiction, by the way.
So who are these men in black shirts and khaki? He says they're civilian operatives and says they are not holding arms. But, well, our videos tell us otherwise. Once again, no prejudice here. We wait for someone in authority, let me put it that way, to tell us exactly who these men are.
So I guess what we can say is that in the videos, we can see them allegedly holding arms.
Yeah, the use of allegedly. Today that word will trend, allegedly and black and white. All right, so it's now time to bring you the social media comments, all you've been saying about DSP Azugu's testimony. Hello, Selinam Ampo.
Okay, a few minutes ago, we had the third sitting of the Justice Emil Short-led Commission of Inquiry investigating the violence that marred the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-elections. DSP Samuel Azugu, the commander of the SWAT unit, gave his account of what transpired at Bauleshi during the by-election. In his testimony, the DSP said his men were marked for the operations to, among other things, avoid mosquito bites. He has made it to the top 2 spots on Twitter's trending list. And that's it right there. We have DSP Azugu at the top and DSP Samuel Azugu as well, the second on Twitter's trending list. Let's read some of the tweets that came with it. And we have Umaru, who says, guys, the commander of police SWAT, DSP Azugu, is a joke. Did you hear him say the masked men seen during the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election wore the masks possibly to prevent mosquito bites? Mosquitoes, really? And we have General, who says, I swear the whole world, nobody make hot past DSP Azugu. Some laughing emojis. He says, this man can recall anything. He can't confirm anything. He can't give a figure on anything. All he did force for be mosquito battling. And Dennis also says, from the face of DSP Azugu, I can comfortably say that telling lies is more difficult than labor. We have more interesting tweets. And if we know, you know, GH says DSP Azugu was going on an intelligence-led operations to secure weapons, but stopped to control traffic and followed unknown motorbikes to the same house under surveillance. And Stephen also comes in with a tweet that says he is just deceiving everyone this afternoon. A whole commander, and you want to tell us that you don't know why your men were masked? And this is from AB, who says, DSP Azugu, my lord, sometimes we wear those masks because of mosquito bites, to prevent mosquitoes from biting our ears and faces. And this is a picture of the supposed face of the commissioner. It says, blood of Habakkuk. And Mohammed says, hey, Charlie, appearing before a commission of inquiry, no be joke. See the way DSP Azugu they suffer. And we have Two Legits, who says, the rate at which DSP Azugu is stammering means one thing. He fears the committee will unravel some things he's trying to hide. And Crispin says, lying is not an easy thing, and DSP Azugu is terrible at it, with some laughing emojis right there. Well, let's check out Facebook. Let's find out what people are saying about DSP Azugu. And we have Nana Ofori, who says, warning shots, the people got injured. This barbaric act is disgraceful and shameful. And Ike Tete says, the man is contradicting himself. Very confused and frustrating. We also have Hussein, who says, DSP, you are struggling to answer the question put to you. This is from Hussein Adams. And Alote says, why must there be shooting in the first place? For the sake of by-elections, DSP, please go and watch the videos again. And we have Teto Ford, who says, sporadic shooting from the back and my men
Thank you very much, Selina. Interesting comments there, Kudu. But listening to DSP Azugu, one may want to say or ask, would he have been safe if he had answered the specific questions that were put to him? For example, you're asked, why are the men wearing the mask? And you want to tell us why they do generally. And I think this is what has brought the mosquito issue, because that explanation for why they would wear the mask on any other day didn't fit the occasion, where they were seen with these masks. So, I mean, the question is, could he have been more specific?
Well, the reason why he couldn't be more specific was probably because he didn't have the information, as became obvious after consistent questioning. So they originally asked him about the masks, why did they wear them that day. He went around in circles about mosquito bites and protecting identity. And they asked him again and again, and in the end he had to say, you know what, I didn't ask them. It's been 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks, and I didn't ask them why they wore masks. There are men under my command, I didn't ask them why they wore masks.
And another thing he says that make or suggest that it was wrong for them to wear it for that occasion was that he said if he had seen them wearing it, he'd have asked them to take it off, which means they were not supposed to be wearing it there.
But it also means he didn't see them. That is the most baffling detail of all.
Well, to be fair, because he did explain that in the heat of the moment, and actually said everything happened within 15 minutes, so it was quite difficult to notice.
We had reporters there. It took a bit long.
Well, could you? No prejudice here. We will wait for the commission to come up with their findings and give their recommendations, but we definitely will let you know whatever is happening at their hearings. From Kojo and myself, thank you so much for your audience. Thank you so much. You can join the conversation on social media, on Joy News. We are Joy News on TV. On Facebook, I beg your pardon. We are Joy News on TV. On Twitter, Joy News on TV. Same for Joy 99.7 FM. Leave your comments, suggestions, anything you want to say about this hearing going on. Leave it here. Gifty Andor Pia takes over.